Microplastics found deep in lungs of living people for the first time. Microplastic pollution has been discovered lodged deep in the lungs of living people for the first time. The particles were found in almost all of the samples analyzed. The scientists said microplastic pollution was now ubiquitous across the planet, making human exposure unavoidable, and meaning there is an increasing concern regarding the hazards to health. So I've been very concerned about microplastics for a long time, ever since I first discovered that this was a thing a couple of years ago. For that reason, I much prefer getting food in glass containers. I much prefer, metal and glass to plastic. Plastic bottles and containers are just more likely to have microplastics. A lot of things that are manufactured with plastic. Think about it this way, right? Look at this photo. This photo is like each visible microplastic shard is like the collection of a fuckload. Like microplastics can be like so small that you can barely see them or not see them at all. Right? So you could theoretically be playing with a toy that was made out of plastic as a kid. And you're going you're smacking their heads into each other. And then 20 minutes later, put your hand in your mouth. There could have been microplastics on your fingers. But yeah, so I just real quick, I recommend whenever possible, don't use plastic. Don't use, if you're going to a market, they have those plastic rip-off bags or whatever. I use them still, but I've been really, every time I use them, I think I should come here to the market with a better alternative strategy. But anyway, glass and metal for anything that is, a jar of some kind, glass and metal. For a drink, glass and metal, in my opinion, is preferable. Though, there are, micro metals, there are, small shards of glass, as well, that can get into your system. But in my opinion, with my understanding of how the world works, I think microplastics are more of a concern. But anyway, samples were taken from tissue removed from 13 patients undergoing surgery, and microplastics were found in 11 cases. That's a significant percentage. That's a significant fucking percentage. Used in plastic package, the most common particulates were polypropylene used in plastic packaging and pipes, and PET used in bottles. 2 previous studies had found microplastics at similarly high rates in lung tissue taken during autopsies. So once again, plastic, plumbing pipes. Once again, I want to remind everyone, your tap water, a lot of people say, Flint doesn't have clean water. Actually, no one has clean water in the United States. So, needs to be understood, there is nowhere that you can get actually healthy and good tap water in this country. Maybe if you live in a mansion and you have your own water supply and you have a giant aquifer or whatever, but if you are connected to any municipality, you have poisoned water. It's that simple. There is no if, there is no and, there is no but. Now, it might be degrees of poison, right? You might be consuming lead. You might be consuming metals and microplastics. You might just be consuming microplastics. You might just be consuming lead. A lot of the tap water in this country is treated with chemicals that do not properly dissolve, that do not properly get filtered out before getting sent to your house, like chromium, chloroform, chlorine. If you are drinking tap water, you are being poisoned, full stop. There is nowhere that has clean water in this country right out the tap. That is a 0% chance. If you are... Maybe it's possible if you live in the fucking super higher echelon of the most rich place in the world, in the country or whatever. It's possible. But if you make less than like $10 million a year, chances are your tap water is poisoned in some capacity. People were already known to breathe in tiny particles, as well as consuming them via food and water. Workers exposed to high levels of microplastics are also known to have developed disease. Microplastics were detected in human blood for the first time in March, showing the particles can travel around the body and may lodge in organs. The impact on health is as yet unknown. But researchers are concerned as microplastics cause damage to human cells. In the laboratory, and air pollution particles are already known to enter the body and cause millions of early deaths a year. We did not expect to find the highest number of particles in the lower regions of the lungs, or particles of the sizes we found, said Laura Sadowski at Hull York Medical School in the UK, a senior author of the study. It is surprising, as the airways are smaller in the lower parts of the lungs, and we would have expected particles of these sizes to be filtered out or trapped before getting this deep. So it's worse than they thought. This data provides an important advance in the field of air pollution, microplastics, and human health. She said the information could be used to create realistic conditions for laboratory experiments to determine health impacts. The research, which has been accepted for publication by the Journal Science of the Total Environment, used samples of healthy lung tissue for the next to surgery targets. It analyzed particles down to 0.003 millimeters in size and used spectroscopy to identify the type of plastic. It is also used to control samples to account for the level of background contamination. In a 2021 study in Brazil on autopsy samples found microplastics in 13 of the 20 people who were analyzed. That's like a D. Now, I want there to be 3 out of 20, or 1 out of 20, or, 0. 13 out of 20, that's like a D minus. You're passing, motherfucker. You're graduating high school with a D minus? That's not okay? It's not okay? The researchers concluded deleterious health outcomes may be related to those contaminations in the respiratory system following inhalation. A U.S. study of lung cancer patients in 1998 found plastic and plant fibers such as cotton in more than 100 samples. In cancerous tissue, 97% of the samples contained the fibers. In non-cancerous samples, 83%. So again, this is also more likely to develop to cancer. Now, for those of you that don't know what cancer is basically just your DNA replicating in a way that is not standard. Your DNA has been damaged or destroyed in some capacity. And there's like a buildup of cells that are not functioning properly, not being disposed of properly, and that creates things like, tumors, growths. That's what cancer is. So when microplastics are invading your cell walls and fucking up with your cells, they can slash and damage your DNA, which can cause cancer. So I'm just saying that's how that works. Huge amount of plastic waste are dumped in the environment, and microplastics contaminate the entire planet. From the summit of Mount Everest to the deepest oceans, microplastics have been found in placentas of pregnant women and in pregnant rats. They pass rapidly through the lungs into hearts, brains, and other organs of the fetuses. A recent review assessed cancer risk and concluded more detailed research on how micro and nanoplastics affect the structures and processes of the human body, and whether or how they could transform cells and induce carcinogenesis is urgently needed, particularly in light of the exponential increase in plastic production. TLDR, we're fucked.